Okay, so this is going to be something I want to talk about. It's about tactical formation, about what I use to play, and also what I'm trying to do today. So I got two formations that I probably recommend you guys take a look. If you guys want to try it out, I can give you the code, but that's only it. So this is 4231 with the wide version. This one's gonna be a lot more different how most people play. So you're probably wondering why am I seeing two fullbacks going? Well, sometimes these games are not really mostly about try to play defensive. I mean, it is true to play defensive, but most times when you're playing defensive, chances are you don't get you what you want. So how I have my setup? Okay, that's a good question. This is my keeper that I have. There are two ways you can do this. You can either play sweeper mode or ball playing keeper. I mean, either way works, but if you're really thinking for build up or try to defend and also having a player that can rush, that could be a good option for a guy who has that type of ability. We all know two center backs are going to be in defensive mode. We all have played this role a lot. Mostly most cliche thing. This is where things get interesting. When you're playing wingback, this is what I recommend. If you want to, sorry, if you want to, I suggest you try putting one of your players with a wingback role and attacking wingback role to make it work. And if you're that type of person who likes to play with more control, possession, or attack and a little bit of risk, this is a recommendation you can do too. And also the fact, I will only say use it if needed. I only use it mostly when I start kicking off the ball because mostly depending on how someone plays. And also, since having a 2 plus plus rule makes it more better, it also makes it very reliable for most people who actually wants to play those methods. Because sometimes you can put up a risk, but it's also very, very risky due to the fact that chances are your defense in the wide area can be exposed. But most times when you're playing defense, you're most likely going to chase back the attack. Sometimes with pace, but sometimes you get enough leverage to get the ball back. Now, as for people who play, or most people that are pros, most likely will have their fullback holding back, which is okay. But at the same time, sometimes when they hold back, your lack of options of attacking is also kind of not good because one, you're trying to go. Like, imagine you're down and this is what you have to deal with. Yeah, sometimes this would be the only option if you want to go with Plan B or another method like that. Midfield rise. There are other ways you can do this. You can either play. One of them I recommend having as a deep line playmaker with someone who can roam around. Recommend with teams with high stamina to be part of that lineup. Team with low stamina, that's going to cost you a lot. A box crasher, I wouldn't. This is not a recommendation for most people to do, but if you like to play with midfield attack, it's a good idea. But also, it's also a bit of a risk to actually try to put it up like that because one, you're gonna leave a giant gap in the position when you attack, and also chance you can be very exposed. So if I were you, you could either try playing with a holding midfielder with roaming space, but sometimes you can be very cautious on how you want to do this, or have another deep line playmaker to work out too, which it actually kind of helps a lot when you're playing. Having the roaming type of ability to get some freedom space. But it is a very cautious approach, so I wouldn't recommend doing it all the time. If you're really considering trying to trying to play box, this would be a good option. But also, making formation does require on positioning on what they need to have because if you're using the same methods on the right side, for example, it can give you worst method idea possible. So my recommendation is use a formation that actually works on a specific position, or else chances are you're going to get very exposed. The wingers, there are two options to do this. You can either do inside forward or winger. It won't change much, but sometimes wingers are only used if you want to have pace in the field to attack or beat the defense. But then again, having two wingers with pace is also very good to have, because if you have one with less-ish pace, they're probably going to get outrun by their wingbacks. Now, up to Cam. My recommendation, when you're playing with a Cam, I recommend having a shadow striker on your team, because having a two striker is also kind of good to have, and also the fact when you're playing with only one, yeah, you could probably get through, but it also makes it a lot of risky on options on how to attack with the ball. Having two strikers kind of important, because one, there are ways you can do it. You can either play with a 1-2 formation, or have one striker decide to drift out wide, and there's going to be like one free gap of the cam to channel in the, like, this will tell you it's more like playing as a second or a backup striker. You can play playmaker too, but the only problem is there's a chance that they're not going to go in and channel the attack, but they're more likely, depending on, they're just going to be more of a passer of the ball. We all know most strikers are going to be using advanced forward for this, but if you want, for this type of formation, I don't want you to change it. Just play attack on this, because it will only work if you're playing attack. If I were you, just play shell striker, because it's kind of easy to pull it off. If you're playing a playmaker role, it does make it a lot challenging too. So, if you are attempting to try playmaker mode, um, one lesson: do not use this. Do not change this. Keep it balanced. That's all I'm going to give you. So yeah, welcome to the attacking formation of how I play my game. I'm not going to give out these formation because these are most likely defensive methods, but then again, the thing about defensive method, I only use it for like your last option if you're going to hold the channel in the box. So this is like a best method to use to attack, and you're gonna get like a lot of goals, but it's also gonna cost you. So try to be very careful. If you can actually master the defensive method with this, then nice, because the people who has, that's actually kind of impressive. Because imagine playing with the attack formation and also struggle to defend. But then again, knowing how to defend is also kind of impressive with this too. So this is my first lineup of how you play with an attacking formation. A little risky though, but still, it's also kind of effective if you're actually going to be playing with attack. Coming up to part two, it's another method that I've tried. This one's a little bit complicated because I've only tried this like 2 days or 3 days ago. Um, Still kind of working on it. I mean, I did win like some of these games with this method and got to Division 1, of course. But this one I'm not really accurate on it because I am still trying to figure out like something I should work with. So this is 4-2, 4-3-2-1. Usually some people say they removed it, which they did, but that was only because they were playing with strikers. But here's the thing, if you're playing with a team with cams, this would probably be a good recommendation to have. Then again, it's also a bit of a risk too, because you're playing with attack and defense that's mixed. The problem behind this formation is that you're not going to have any wingers that can help, and if you're using fullbacks to help you wingers, this is a very highly good option, but it's also kind of a bit of risk because one, you're going to be very exposed on the wide areas, and you don't have a lot of options on who's gonna be playing wide. So this is like more like building up in the middle area. But if you're playing with attack, this is what you're gonna be expecting. This is what you're gonna be expecting when you're playing with the attacking formation. Now, you're probably wondering why you have one of them half winger. We'll explain this later. We all know most defense, you're all going to be playing with this. Goalkeepers are also mixed, but I recommend you play the goalkeeping role with this because if you play with other those, chances are defense are going to get very exposed, which it may not say it there, but it feels like for me it's going to get exposed if someone tries this out. On to, okay, back to formation. On to the wing backs. This is when the risky part happens. You will need defensive support on the mid, and plus, since they're the only two left, this will cost them a lot due to their energy. So, regarding on stamina, this is also one of the formation that can be very risky for people with less stamina. So you need to have good substitute that are mostly fullbacks or wingback position because if you don't, their energy is gonna die quick, like very, very quick. Now, putting Minecon will be a good option too, but then again, how to attack with this is also a little bit of a risky. It's also a little complicated on how you want to do this. Now, you can either try to switch to cam with this, which can work, but you want to have a player with extra plus plus rule to work this out. If you don't, well, it's okay if you don't, but if you don't have anyone with a role with the plus, they're gonna get lost. So putting a box would be a good option, but at the same time, you want a full, you want some help on the wide area too. Plus, since there's not a lot of options. Now, if you're playing midfielder, most times you can require having two, maybe three. But sometimes, if you're playing with this type of method, it kind of feels like you're playing with two central mids, which is okay. But at the same time, with the lack of options, that's when the challenge comes in. Because you don't really got a lot of options when you're playing with this role. And and this is what you're going to be expecting. Most times, if you're playing something like this, you need options. Wingers are most likely going to have like three of them there. And then most times you're going to have like left side, it's more like you're going to have four. Four, maybe five regarding how you want to do this. It's also kind of the fact that you have to be very cautious in how you do this because this is like a formation that seems a bit of a risk when you're only doing it with no defense. And this kind of seems like a no defensive formation. So for most people who would recommend trying this, I wouldn't say you should do this or give this a shot because it is kind of mixed. And plus, your midfielder is pretty much the only issue here. If I were you, you can try to use this formation, but at the same time, it's also a bit of a complicated way of doing it. For the people who wants to know how this works, you're gonna need a bunch of support on your rolls because one, players with a lack of support, you also have option problems because most wingbacks who plays on a balanced role, there is a chance that these guys or someone wingback will most likely not attack inside the box, which can be an issue. So I recommend you guys using this so you can actually get better options here. But the most important about this formation is that you cannot lose the ball because if you do, you're going to be very exposed. But at the same time, you can actually fight it back too if you have the right players on the playstyle roles and what they can be affected on. Since since it's an anticipate player and this is an anchor, this one's another anticipate player, another anchor there too. I add anchor here, anchor there, so you pretty much this is more like an anchor formation to have. Now, come to attack. I recommend having someone with incisive and also a bit of tiki-taka to work this through because you do not want to try losing any of it. Coming to attackers, this one it's not really something I would say, okay, you got something, but at the same time, it's not something. It's more like if it's something that can be if something the method works, but the problem about this attack is that you have to be very careful here because one, they're not going to channel inside a box. They're more likely build support. It would be a good option to play like this if you're willing to play wide and maybe hold on the ball. But having a striker like Rooney would be a good option because I feel like you're going to be relying a lot on strength and a bit of pace too. Oh, and most importantly, is you cannot play. Well, you can play with attack, but they're not. You're gonna need a lot of support. Plus, having players with no support, it's also a bit of a huge risk too. So most times, I recommend you guys play versatile with this type of formation. This one, I would say you could either do Shadow Striker, but I recommend you guys play Playmaker for this because you need someone to trip with the ball a lot, and also since the guy has technical dribbling style, it also kind of helps a lot. So if you ever want to try to do something like this or this type of formation, there's a code up there for you. And these are most likely used for defensive methods, which everyone can probably pull off. If you ever wanted to use it, there's a code right there too. Feel free to make some tweaks out of it too, because not everyone's actually accurate on how they set these up. So yeah, those are my so this is like my second method on how to play attack. Apparently, I wouldn't say it's a fully success. I mean, so far I haven't lost a game with this method, but it's also a little bit complicated and risky because one, there's no wide option. Well, there is wide option when you attack, but when you lose it, they're gonna make a lot of runs wide. But most importantly, when you're playing this type of game, it's more likely to guard the middle, middle of the field because sometimes if you don't, you're gonna get caught. Hmm. Yeah, the half winger can only work if you're attacking. So it kind of works with Tiki also a method to use to build for fast pace or fast counter attack, and maybe chance you could probably switch the play too. And also using this can also confuse the defender because if someone drifts out wide, you can leave a huge gap for your midfielders, defenders, maybe your somewhat striker too, but most likely your midfielder. They're going to leave a huge gap. They can actually run through the channels and maybe give you a goal, which is actually something you could use. The problem about having this is that you won't see a lot of these type of cards attack because one they're playing in the wide area, not in the center. Yeah, that's my second method. Um, Next, I'll probably like show you some gameplay how this works for you, and maybe I'll play in a champ run or maybe like in a competitive run. But I think it depends how I do it. Um, if I were you, just play Playmaker with this card too. It kind of helps out. Yeah, you could do it with this, but then again, if you're playing half wing, you better have someone with pace, not someone with decent stat with no running skills can lose it. Yeah, that's my method for you on how to attack. Next, I will probably show some gameplay how it should look like regarding how this plays off.